cheaper than the last one.
See, I would imagine it would. I was saying it, I didn't know what the number was before, but,
2.24 instead of 2.44?
yeah, because the county
Okay, yeah, I can see a picture of that.
Good morning, it's just after 9 a.m. I will call the January 12, 2016 Wright County Board meeting to order. We'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Minutes of January 5th, 2016.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion, we approve the minutes. Does anybody else got a change?
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Glyden. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Review and approval of the agenda. Mike, you had one thing.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I'd like to add it could be under items for consideration, authorization to go to the Region 7W/Met Council, that memo of understanding for the urbanized boundary will be on Monday, it'll be on January 21st at 4 p.m. in Albertville. I think it's imperative for us to just keep this as an annual meeting with that memo of understanding with the urbanized boundary. I did send an invitation out to Jeff O'Neill from Monticello, and I need to get a hold of Mr. Auger and Mr. Kern from Delano, because my opinion that the next census round, they'll be included in that urbanized boundary also, and it'd be good for them to see what's going on with that.
So Met Council urban boundary would be item E on the items for consideration then?
That sounds good. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Anything else, Dan?
This is for the agenda, or?
Yeah, we're adding that on
Okay.
items for consideration E.
And Mr. Chair, I'm not sure if I need to wait another week and put it on the actual agenda, but I'd like to schedule a committee of the whole meeting to, regarding a proposed change in planning and zoning ordinance. And it would, I don't know exactly how to word it, what my change is. Sean was working on it with me, so.
Well, I'll probably wait till.
Should we wait till
Okay,
next
he's
week?
got something he's
know
working
what
on?
it is.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Motion to, go ahead. I'll make a motion to approve the agenda.
With the addition, is there a
I'll
second?
second that.
Motion by Commissioner Glyden, second by Commissioner Houston. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. The consent agenda, does anybody have any items they wish to remove for further discussion?
Mr. Chair, I'll move the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Houston. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Auditor Treasurer Bob Hevola. Good morning, Bob.
Hey, good morning, Board. I have a few items on the agenda. So the first item is to approve the engagement letter for the 2015 audit services by the Office of the State Auditor. Just a refresher, the State Auditor opted not to release us. We were audited by Clifton Larson Allen in the past. This is just a formality that they do want us to sign a one-year engagement letter. They had first requested a 3-year engagement letter. We've indicated to them that we're only interested in signing a 1 year. So this would be for the 2015 audit performed in 16.
And, Mr. Chair.
Charlie, go ahead.
Bob, is this something that we could, we're required to do this, I take it, but is it something that we could send along a little memo from the county board that we're doing this under protest or whatever, that we, that we're not happy with the way that the auditor has performed and kind of forced us to do this? I would like to, if that's a possibility, I'd like to make that motion.
Right.
First, can I ask there was a new law not requiring counties to choose privately, but that becomes effective not for the 15 years, is that correct? Is that for
August this year.
Right. The way I understand the law is we have to declare by June of 16 if we want to be released for the 17 audit. Our intention would be to 17
Right.
and beyond. But
Right.
And
But we've been doing our own audit with Clifton Larson, not having the state, and this year, we're going to be forced to do it with the state, correct?
Right. Commissioners, just to recap, the state auditor has released us in the past. They had the option to take us back. They continued to release us. So this year, they opted not to continue to release us, and they said they would be our auditors.
But I think like Blazing Saddles, we should send them a letter saying, expressing our extreme displeasure with the,
Commissioners, if I could add, as another one of those formalities is they would like to have an audit entrance meeting, and then, of course, they'll have an audit exit meeting. So I'd like to propose 2 weeks from today that we have an audit entrance meeting, and Commissioner Burrell, that may be a good time to parlay that. I mean, this is a contractual agreement. I don't think, we don't have a choice but to sign.
but now we're gonna, we're gonna be talking with low-level people. I mean, I would like to send a letter so that the state auditor sees that we're not happy with what they,
So we'll sign it, but we're signing it under protest.
or we're just with we're upset with the process that, whatever. I think we could come up with some kind of verbiage that would let us. Chris?
And in the past, we have sent those letters that we do not want to go with the state auditor.
Yeah.
And they've now chosen to ignore those
Right,
letters.
it's just, I don't know, it's just so,
Perhaps for the listening public, Bob, I think we're equally agreeable to the work done by each party. It's just that Clifton Larson Allen has the ability to do it at a lower cost, and can you kind of share those numbers with us? And is that analysis fair? Would you agree with that analysis?
It's a perception. It is a fair perception. Our audit bills used to be a lot larger, and we've had a consistent audit bill around $58,000 for Clifton Larson Allen. The assumption is that the audit costs will go up when we go back to the state auditor's office. The state auditors will charge whatever is required to do the audit, and we can't mandate that they come in at a lower bill.
Did we budget for the amount that we pay Clifton Larson Allen?
We did.
Perhaps we should include that in our letter, that we've been paying, approximately this amount for the last number of years, and that's how much we budgeted, and we're, the board is hopeful and has an expectation that it will come in around that amount, all right?
And
then
Commissioner,
what do
if
you
we
think?
can, I'll tell you what their standard response will be.
Well, I know they're not gonna like it, but I mean it, I guess if somebody out there in the private sector can do it for a certain price, if they can't do it for that price, maybe they're in the wrong business.
Right.
well, then to make us do it,
They'll never respond back to us.
Mr. Chair?
Correct, they did not respond.
I think that's why the legislature changed this, so we can get out, so the auditor can't just arbitrarily pull you in, pull you out when they feel like it. As far as the letter goes, Commissioner Burrell, I would just soon not poke the bear, because they're well aware of our position on this, and that's what came in when I met
haven't
with Bob
heard
yesterday
from
on this.
me
I just want to make sure we're pushed them. They know where we're at, and there's no question where our stance is.
And you can tell the underlings when they come to pass it on.
We did declare our frustration with the state auditor's office when we asked to be released in June of 14 and heard nothing until August of 15. We expressed our frustration.
But I guess, Mike, and I guess I never got elected to not poke the bear, I think people want me over here to poke the bear, because I think that any attention that we can draw negatively to the state auditor for what they've done to us, I think should be brought plain and clear. I'm in favor of.
Well, we did send an email regarding that.
Commissioner Potter?
In all fairness to Commissioner Burrell's point, and I think the legislature is well aware of the frustrations with not just us, a lot of other counties with this situation, and the state auditor's office is being monitored and under the microscope of quite a few legislators, and I get emails from a couple of them in particular that are on top of this big time.
I guess maybe the best thing is when these underlings, as we call them, come out here in a couple of weeks, maybe we remind them how much we were paying Clifton Larson Allen, and tell them that we have an expectation. And I guess if they exceed those numbers substantially, then there's more ammunition for our argument, and if they come in close, more power to them, and maybe we have to back off a little bit of what we
And if they
say.
come in way under, we got another argument.
Well, then we start, exactly right, but I don't think they're gonna come in way under, but I think if they can come in that ballpark, I guess, then maybe that office has gotten more efficient than before.
That's the most optimistic thing I've ever heard you say.
I'll make a motion to approve engagement letter for the 2015 audit service by the Office of the
I'll
State
second
Auditor.
that.
Motion by Commissioner Deline, second by Commissioner Potter. I think, Charlie, they're under a microscope now. Maybe they'll start doing better. You know, and I think they've always done good audits. I mean, would you agree with that, Bob? And
Being an ex-state auditor, yes,
Yeah.
they did
And I think-
darn good audits.
it's been suggested to me that since Wright County is so close to the Twin Cities, that this is kind of a prize area, and even to the extent that maybe they like to spend more time here because it's a short commute than if they have to go somewhere else. So, you know, we need to discourage that, but.
I just, you know, and to the other commissioner's point, we're well aware of it, the people at the state are well aware of it, the state auditor is well aware of it. I don't think the general public has gotten a flavor of what's gone on yet, and I think that anything we can do to bring that to the public's attention, but maybe just our discussion here will do something, so.
Hopefully.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Then the issue about this entrance meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yeah, at this time, Board, I'd also like to set that audit entrance meeting for 2 Tuesdays from now. They'll be here doing internal audit, our internal controls anyways. So I'd first like to offer it to the full board. It's an audit entrance meeting. They're going to talk about the players and the scope of what they're doing.
What's the date?
The
It'll be following the
26th.
board meeting. They're going to be here all day anyway, so we just say following the board meeting, 10:30.
Do we know of anything on the 26th in the board meeting that would create a longer meeting that day, or do we expect to be done by 10:30?
I would guess we'd be done.
Okay, so why don't we go for 10:30 on the 26th?
Okay?
Everybody okay with that?
No. Should,
We'll need a motion to that effect.
I'll make a motion that we schedule the audit entrance meeting for 10:30, January 26th.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion by Burrell, second by Houston, and maybe from our benefit here, we call that a budget committee of the whole would probably be what we would refer to that for the purpose of the audit entrance meeting, so. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to have you sign 2 copies of the contract so we can send them to the state auditors.
Do you have the disappearing ink pen around, or?
Yeah. Board, moving on, number 2, I'm excited to introduce another ex-state auditor. You've seen her before, Terry Heaton with Springstead. She's bearer of good news. Our bond sale yesterday had 8 bidders, and we had a very favorable bid, and if you accept it, I'm going to turn it over to Terry. She's going to walk you through the adoption of the resolution for the sale of the notes, and then also, as a counterpart to that, is we have a fiscal agent, somebody who will pay the buyers of our bonds. We need to sign an agreement with them. So here's Terry for those 2 items.
Mr. Chair and members of the board, as Bob indicated, that we do have really good news today. I've distributed the yellow sheet, which is a bid tabulation from yesterday's sale on the county's behalf that Springstead conducted at 1:00 p.m. Listed first is Stiffel Nicholas and Company, and they have the low bid. The interest rate is 2.24%, and again, that is for a 20-year bond. And that is just amazing as we continue to see these rates. You did receive 8 bids. There are some syndicate bids where you see multiple financial institutions on the second page. So there were actually 33 financial institutions participating in the bid yesterday. And the main reason for that, first of all, you have a really good name and your reputation in the market. You've been out there recently, they've been watching for you, and also you have a Standard & Poor's rating of AA+, which is just 1 notch below the most pristine AAA, and will trade. It assures the buyers that of the repayment, the likelihood of repayment is very high. The low rate of 2.24 includes, it's favorable. We estimated a month ago when you approved going forward with the sale, an interest rate of 2.91 was our estimate. It came in at 2.24, which is 67 basis points less. We talked a little bit about the fact that the feds were going to move the market up. What was that going to do? And sometimes the Bob Thistle trick of trying to hit a low supply in January, would that work for you? I would say it worked for you, because when I look at what happened to interest rates in reality, they only dropped by about 15 basis points. And your bids came in 67 basis points below. And that's why I say I think it had to do with low supply, and I think you lucked out by using that strategy. In fact, the lower interest rates are so low that you actually saved about $500,000 on interest costs from our estimate.
Did we go back and recoup the other, the $10 million?
And the other thing that you did, the strategy of splitting them into two, is you probably have half a base, half of a percent lower on both bond issues because you issued them in different years, so that you are able to offer both with BQ rates. So all the way around, every opportunity that you had to save money, you did. In fact, Bob and I were talking about this yesterday. You also have a premium bid, and so that means along with the interest rates, they bid a premium or discount. They gave you part of this as cash. It was about $167,000. We were able to lower the bond issue amount by that, so instead of issuing $7,040,000, you're going to be issuing $6,875,000. You had the same situation this fall, so instead of issuing $10 million of bonds, you issued $9.7 million, $9,735,000. So in total, to get your $17 million of capital costs because of premiums, you've actually issued bonds totaling $16,610,000. So about $400,000 of the new building are being paid for with premiums. And again, this is good news all the way around. The credit rating report, a phenomenal report card for the county. You have a very strong economy, which is all part of, some of it you can help, some of it you can't. Some of it has to do with just enticing businesses to be here and keeping the group that you have. Strong management, good financial management policies and practices, strong budgetary performance that they see over and over again, which is, starts at the county board and includes everyone involved. Very strong budgetary flexibility and strong liquidity. All those things are very, very important and part of why you have such a strong and high credit rating. And so with that, we strongly recommend approving and awarding to Stifel Nicholas and Company, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, are there any questions?
I'll make a motion approving the resolution award the sale of general obligation capital improvement plan bond serial 2016A in the original aggregate principal amount of $6,875,000 to Stifel Nicholas and Company.
I will second that.
Okay, motion on the resolution by Delide and second by Houston. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Commissioner Burrell?
Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Resolution carries unanimous.
And in addition, there is a fiscal agency agreement for the placement of the money and holding it. It's very routine, and I think it's just part and parcel of the approval that you had. I really don't think it merits going into. You've got a copy of the document, and I guess we recommend that you would approve that as well, as just part of the agreement.
I'll make a motion to have the fiscal agency agreement signed with Associated Trust Company, National Association of Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Delide and second by Commissioner Potter. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign.
Thank you.
Motion carries unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You guys heard that she was the next state auditor, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Wouldn't the correct word be former?
There you go, in a previous life.
Kind of has bad connotations.
Were you ever working on the Wright County audits? Yes.
I don't think so. I was with the city of St. Paul most of the cities.
Okay.
I don't recall.
Yeah, she was on the city of St. Paul. I started at the city of St. Paul, but I did audit.
You did Wright County
I
audits.
did Wright
Bob.
County and Canuway, so.
Yeah.
I just stayed, so,
His car broke down.
yeah. All right, thank you, Board. The next item on the agenda is to approve a Rankin Noonan 2016 retainer agreement renewal. We've had Kurt Dieter with Rankin Noonan on retainer for our ditch matters for several years now. I believe that we have benefited by this. Brian is here to, I think, echo the same thing. I'd like you to approve a renewal of that retainer agreement with Rankin Noonan.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we approve the retainer agreement with Rankin Noonan.
I'll second it.
Motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Delide. Any further discussion?
Just that retainer of $200 a month is just a phenomenal deal for the county.
Yeah, because he'll answer a few questions free of charge for that price and that sort of thing. And Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
For the next item on the agenda, if you remember, I talked to you about the indirect cost allocation plans. This is a company that comes in, looks at all the associated expenses we have to help support the federal grants, payroll and like items. Maximus has been our vendor for many years. If you remember, board, the new board here, Diane Blasco was with Maximus. She came out here and explained how to use the indirect cost plan. She subsequently left Maximus and started her own company. So she contacted me and said, Bob, would I be interested in getting a quote? I said, sure. And then I also got a quote from Maximus. And board, I don't know if I put the Maximus in your contract, but Maximus quoted us $5,800 a year for a 3-year contract. And De Novo, which is Diane Blasco's company, offered us a bid at $4,495. You know, if I didn't know Diane and I didn't know that she had actually put together a Wright County indirect cost plan, I don't know I'd be making that recommendation to you, but I do know that she is providing indirect cost plans in North Dakota. She is looking to do Minnesota counties. So we have experience with Diane. It's up to you if you want to go with the lower bidder or do you want to stay with Maximus.
And your recommendation, Bob, is the lower bidder? Is that what I meant?
Yeah, I'd be making that recommendation. I think she has experience.
I'll make a motion to approve contract for indirect cost allocation plan prepared with De Novo
I'll second
Consulting
that.
Solutions.
Motion by Commissioner Delighten to approve De Novo Consulting Solutions for a cost allocation plan for the next 3 years. Second by Houston. Any further discussion? Not all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Mr. Chair, I'll work with Brian to just ascertain whose signatures we should really get on these Reinke Noonan and De Novo's contracts. The next item on the agenda is to approve 2 $100 change funds for the Parks Department. Gearing up for the state auditors, you know, one of the housekeeping things we do is we try to find out do we have any inherited change funds. A change fund is just so you come in with a $20 bill, I can make change for you, appropriate change. The Parks Department has 2 established change funds, but the board has never approved them. So they're already existing, so I'm asking you to approve them formally. 2 $100 change funds for the Parks Department. It's $100 per park.
Mr. Chair, I'll make that motion, but it's one, on the top it says on our form, approve 2 $100 change funds and recognize established change funds of $150 each account. Is
Yeah.
that, so is it the $100 in addition to the 150 or?
I stand correct. I don't have his email here, but I believe they are 150.
150, okay.
So if you approve 150 and he has 100, well, then he can raise it up to 150.
Okay,
So
I'll
or if
approve
you
that.
approve.
I'll approve them for $150 each.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Delighten. Any further discussion?
No, I think $150 is probably more realistic for
Yeah.
the campground.
Right, and I believe that's what they are already.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
All right. The last item I have on the agenda is to approve the November guidelines. The one item that I thought I should definitely draw your attention to is November was the month that I did the investment adjustment. Today you saw how Wright County issued bonds at a premium. So the people who are buying them are actually going to pay premium dollars. GASB says that you're supposed to amortize that premium to the first call date or maturity, whichever is sooner. That's what we have been doing. So in here, you're going to see that we had on page, I think it's going to page 16 for you, that we had a significant lessening of our investment income. So November was the month that I'm getting coupons. I have to remember that some of that is a premium, so I need to actually not recognize that as new money, but a return of principal. So after that adjustment, in November, we're at $868,000, and we have a budget of $1.3 million. The effect of this just delays the recognition of that investment income to future years. But we're following GASB on that, so.
I'll make a motion to approve November revenue expenditure budget report.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Dryden, second by Commissioner Burrell. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign.
Commissioners, I did feel
Motion carries
one
unanimous. Go ahead.
comment when I was in there earlier, that would you prefer to just receive paper copies on the quarters and PDFs each month?
How about 6, 9, and 12?
6, 9, and 12
Yeah.
paper copies.
Yeah, 6 is critical because we want that one when we're doing budgets, and that's just, it's easiest because it's although I would have maybe even 6, 7, because 7 that's what we have here too, and if we want one more month updated, just to see if something's kind of went kittywampus since July, so maybe like 6, 7, and for my benefit, 6, 7, and 12 would be the ones that I would probably want the most. I don't know if anybody wants 9 in there.
Board, if I could make the recommendation, our new budget templates that we've been trying to follow, the 6 month, you'll have a paper copy. The budget books, the templates will have 7 months in there, so you could have your paper copy, then you could look at your budget book.
Oh, that'll have it in there, so then
Yeah.
do just 6 and 12 then even.
That's good enough.
That would be preferable.
But just so that, for clarification, it will be on the website for every month, so.
Yes,
And you'll
correct.
get it emailed to you
Yeah.
monthly too.
Yeah, you'll get a PDF copy each month. So paper copies just June and December?
I think that would be fair.
Okay. And of course, upon request, anytime you want a paper copy, just let me know. Thank you, Board.
Thanks, Bob, and here's the signed claims list.
Let it be noted that the chair did his part.
Sean Riley, Planning and Zoning Administrator. Good morning, Sean.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, County Board. The County Board held a committee of the whole meeting on October 6, 2015 in relation to agricultural deed restrictions and solar farms. Those minutes are attached. We conducted our process as required for a proposed zoning amendment, notifying the townships and cities, going to the Planning Commission, letting that process take place. December 10th, 2015, the Wright County Planning Commission minutes are attached with their minutes and recommendation. So now it's in front of the County Board again, who has the final authority on zoning amendments. We'll probably open it up to questions and comments from the County Board before proceeding.
Mr. Chair, Sean, so we heard back from 4 townships.
I
that
believe
correct? On the
5,
5?
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hewsome, Buffalo,
Buffalo, Rockford, Maple Lake, and
Monticello.
Monticello.
I think that might be the ones.
Yeah, that's all I see.
That's for 4, yep.
And Mr. Chair, a lot of the townships just had no problem with it, so they just didn't send anything in either, which would be nice if they would send in the affirmative, but most of the other townships that I've talked to, especially in my district, were in favor of it and just said they have no problem, so.
Well, I think, Sean, is there a few townships that just, because of virtue of the types of poles they have and the lack of substations and whatnot, that there's just no requests in townships at all? Do we have some townships like that, I'm guessing?
Well, since a part of this issue is so tied to Xcel Energy at this time, and that district obviously isn't the entire county, I would say there's some townships that aren't affected by the Solar Garden Xcel Energy
Anything in Wright Hennepin really
issue.
isn't.
And then
Okay,
I'd
so
say
it's more
there's
of an
some
Xcel thing.
townships that are strongly impacted by it. Some townships probably just haven't had their farm operators and town board have the issue addressed to them yet.
So what are the townships where you're hearing all the requests from? You know, can you like pin it down to 6 or 7 townships where pretty much, I know you said.
It's in the, more of the southeast and a little bit north of Buffalo. So Buffalo Township, Rockford, Franklin,
Woodland.
Woodland to a degree. There's a Excel district that reaches out on State Highway 25.
And
So
then
it's not
Monticello.
it's not the
Monticello is
majority of
one.
those districts. Maple Lake, and then some of the townships that are now cities have been dealing with it. Otsego, St. Michael, to some degree. Pretty much north of Buffalo, northeast, and then a little bit south.
How about
So,
Silver Creek? Are they seeing anything? Monticello Township clearly is, but Silver Creek not?
I
They're
don't
right
think
Hennepin area.
I don't think I've had a parcel request on.
Okay, so there's about 6
Silver
townships
Creek.
then?
Right. And then there was one out by South Haven. I guess there's a small finger of Excel territory that goes out there, but I haven't heard much detail on that since an initial inquiry. Actually, in the city of South Haven and outside of the city of South Haven.
Commissioner Houston?
Yeah, I guess the biggest concern from one of my townships is that why they're allowing an exception for solar farms on restricted ag land when nothing else would be allowed. Or when I'm reading the proposal, it says will be considered. So that's their primary concern. There's other things that are not being allowed on there, but solar farms are.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioner Houston, I'll address that if I may. There are probably other things that should be allowed. Right now, the solar things are the ones that have come out front right now where we need this exception for, especially one project down in Cokato Township. So to keep it a little cleaner, I guess that we brought forward just the solar proposal. But really, it does, in my opinion, does not make sense. When you say restricted land, oh, that makes it sound like, why are we doing something unrestricted? And I've explained this before, and I'm going to do it one more time for the public or whoever. If you and I had two 40-acre pieces of land, and I want to build a house, and I have enough money, I don't need financing, I build my house. And I'm only allowed one dwelling on my property. You have a 40-acre, you need to get financing for your house, so you take off 5 acres because the lenders don't want to borrow money for that much of a land. So now your 35 acres is restricted. Well, my 35 acres, or my whole farm is restricted too as far as building eligibility, but I can put up a solar farm, I can put up a cell tower, I can put up do whatever, but on the rest of my land, but you can't because you had to finance your 5 acres. It ends up getting restricted for that purpose, and it should be restricted for another dwelling, would make more sense to me.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Houston Burrell, that's correct at that level of review. I mean, it's for housing. We have 1 per 40.
Yeah.
You build a house on your 40, you can't do another house, whether it's divided off
Correct.
or not. So even if it's not deed restricted, that person can't build another house. Looking back on it, I would maybe make the argument we should not have put this in motion by allowing other conditional use permit uses on those 40s that have already used up their entitlement, including cell towers and solar farms. But we did make the interpretation that if the division had not taken place, there were some limited uses, because there's not that many that don't need a division to do their use, such as another house, a church, a golf course, and a clubhouse. Most of them have to buy a piece of land and do a division, which requires that entitlement. The cell towers, I think, were a little bit unique until our solar farms, and that leases were offered, and they could go up on a 40 that the house had not been divided off of. And then we had the gravel pit issue in the early 2000s, and now we're sitting here with solar farms. So I'd like to stay focused on the solar farms, because I don't know if there really is that many other uses that could take place on a
And that's,
40,
and that's really is what's before us.
right, that has a house on it and hasn't been divided off.
Yeah, and Mr. Chair, Sean, Commissioner Burrell, one of the primary concerns too is taking prime cropland out of production, and whether they're not necessarily opposed to solar farms. However, when they're looking at another area, perhaps a gravel pit, different types of soil, different areas, that would be, you're not infringing on any, taking crop production out of.
Best thing that ever happened, because we're overproducing. We have way more crops than we need right now.
Right
This does
now.
not- Right,
Yeah,
and,
right
and
now.
and I said, this does not ruin the cropland. Whereas if you did a gravel pit, pretty much you're not gonna grow anything there again.
Right.
Whereas this here, you put a pole in the ground, in 20 years, 25 years, whenever this is up, the poles are out and you have prime farmland again. Whereas it protects it way better, because if a lot of these, especially the ones I'm looking at around Waverly, if the economy were to grow again, housing would come up, that prime farmland would go into housing, it would never come back to ag. So this way, I think it protects it more than leaving it alone even, so.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Potter.
In this discussion here, my township, Rockford Township, was okay with it, but I did hear concerns from Buffalo Township on this, and I don't want to have it go unnoticed that they do have a question and concern at this, and others may disagree, but they should at least be heard what they're.
Mike, they're just against solar, and that's already passed, and they're just doing everything that they can. Buffalo is basically the only township, as far as I know, that is opposing this, and we have a lot of townships, and the ones I've talked to said they have no problem with it at all. And then they said, I wish they would send the thing in saying that they're okay with it, but, you know,
So, Mr. Burrell, correct, Commissioner, you said that they have had a chance to do all this, but they just choose not, because they don't want solar, period, but they have.
I don't believe that's true, because
You don't think that Buffalo is against, no, they
Well-
oppose the solar
Well,
amendment too.
according to past minutes, it said they're not necessarily opposed to solar, but.
Now they've changed
just-
their mind then.
Well, I don't know, but I'm just reading the minutes. I can see their concern if there's a number of companies that are coming forward and wanting to buy up farmland, so that it is a concern. It's anything that is in the beginning stages, you don't know how far it's going to go, so you'd like it to progress maybe a little more slowly, and it seems like this is becoming a bit of an explosion. I don't know how many requests we've had, Sean, but it just seems like we're right on the cusp that
Well-
we don't know. There's a lot of unknowns. There's federal incentives, there's state incentives that they're giving to these companies, and I'm in favor of solar. I'm not opposed to that. However, I would like to see things move a little more slowly on this, because if we suddenly have all these farms there's arrays all over, I don't know. I know it doesn't ruin the farmland. That's a positive thing. You can look at perhaps grazing sheep underneath them and different options. So it's not that I'm opposed to that, but I do feel cautionary about how we're moving forward, and I know the wording in your language is may be considered or will be considered, so it's not a blanket, we are going to approve all these things. So I appreciate that is pretty cautionary language. However, my hope is that this moves more slowly, and I hate to have lots of people jumping on this bandwagon, and in 10 years they're saying, well, it's really not paying off the way we thought it would, and we're pulling out, and we're going to be decommissioning solar farms. I don't know. I'm just playing the cautionary.
And I know we had a conversation yesterday, Commissioner Houston, and if these solar people were to pull out and leave their panels, they're leaving a huge resource. It would be like somebody building a generator that makes millions of dollars worth of electricity and then saying, well, I guess I don't want that anymore. It's not, but that's not what we're considering today. What we're considering is just to allow these on a 40 that somebody had to finance their 5 acres for their house. The solar thing is already done, it's out there, it's going through the process. This, like the solar amendment, was vetted with the township on the planning board. We had plenty of hearings, we heard from a lot of people on it, and it's really, it comes down to the person's land, where because you had to finance your 5 acres, you can't do anything other than plant corn and soybeans. Why can't you put up a solar panel? And that's really what we're...
That's one scenario, but that's not the only scenario where a property becomes restricted, though.
Right. Mr. Chair, Commissioner Hewsom's point, just to get that clarified, Buffalo Township had that Aurora project that popped up on them out of the blue that was regulated by the state. I think that was not the best experience on how that happened, and Buffalo Township is right in the center of this activity. A lot of proposals, both on restricted and not restricted.
Right.
So I don't know if there's so much against it, they probably just have concerns. We wish we could see 2-3 years down the road what
Exactly.
the outcome was, but hindsight's always 20/20, and there are other reasons for restricted land. You can divide it off on the house and sell the parcel. You can transfer your entitlements to other 40s. So that's one scenario. They essentially are the result of the same thing. You don't have any more 1 per 40s left. But I'd say the majority of the restricted parcels the house has been divided off, and that previous owner has probably moved on. I mean, we have original farm families that still have it, but most of them have probably sold the house, and now the farmland is run by a
Again, to
person.
use this as ag land or to use it for solar panels, I'm okay with either one of them. Matter of fact, I'd be okay if they put up a cell tower too. I don't know why we need a building eligibility to put up a cell tower is.
Well, to speak to that, I can't control the quantity issue.
Right.
Some counties have reached out to me wondering what we did because they're considering not doing it in floodplain or shoreland, and they're debating that issue. We debated that issue. We're now debating the entitlement issue where it needs an entitlement. So sometimes that control is the structure, the boxes you put in place to deal with land uses, and that's what our planning commission and county board is for. It needs to decide
Mr. Chair?
potential restrictions or not.
Commissioner Dwyden,
Now, in the change here, we've got it may or may not, but we really don't have any control over that. I mean, we have to have specific reasons on why we're denying something.
Well, and for the record, it used to say may be considered, but it was recommended should be changed to will, because if it's may, who decides? I have to take in any application.
Yeah,
So will means the planning commission has to consider a request the same as unrestricted land. Now,
Okay.
the conditions for denying it on a conditional use permit,
there really aren't that many.
well,
No, it's going to be.
there's a list, but they're open, and there's a lot of objective to it and some subjective.
See,
noise, dust, lower property values,
Right,
those sorts of
property
things.
values.
List.
We've had
Subjective things, some
We've
of them are
had farm
subjective, some not
programs
so
in the
much.
past where you as citizens paid farmers not to plant a crop on that land. I mean, and it was beneficial to agriculture because it lowered the production and brought up the prices supposedly, And here we're putting some solar panels in, and it's keeping some market off the deal. I said every farmer, it would be, unless, they're losing that particular land, if they're renting it, would be for this, I would think.
But now, are we opening ourselves up by allowing this unrestricted property? Are we opening ourselves up for any other thing, such as a landfill or a mining operation.
Those would all need zoning changes.
And, Mr. Chair, Sean, once this is rezoned, because this becomes commercial property, correct?
Not
These
rezoned.
solar-
Not
Okay, so you're
rezoned.
not rezoning it?
Assessed differently.
Oh, but they are paying commercial tax rates on it?
It would be assessed differently.
So it would be-
Taxing is by use, not by zoning.
Okay, all right. So we don't have to worry about that. It would not be rezoned commercial.
I don't see the big trend-setting thing that we're doing here.
Mr. Chair, Commissioner Delight had a question about other things. The way this is structured and defined, no, but it doesn't stop anybody from coming in and making a similar request. They could have done that a year ago. They could do it in a half year.
Well,
Do
just,
they do it because of this?
I'm just wondering if it opens up because we're allowing this, if they would have more of an easier way in court to say, well, the county's allowing this.
Right, like Buffalo Township.
Well, I don't know about court, but maybe with the county board, if the cell tower industry came to you with similar, they might wonder if they did get denied.
Because, I mean, I can see the cell towers,
What else? Yeah.
you know, coming in more because there are dead areas yet.
The one thing with this, where I don't think you're going to see this overwhelming floodgate of anything by changing this, a cell tower is different than a solar because the solar has to be located in a certain area geographically close to a substation, whereas the cell tower, yes, they want to get in their good coverage area, but if they moved a half a mile away or 3/4 of a mile away, probably not going to change their signal a whole lot, where they could get to that piece of land that's available to them.
And that market's somewhat developed,
it depends
obviously.
too on elevations and stuff, this,
Yeah.
you know,
The
there's a lot
cell
of other
farm, or
components, but.
the solar farm issue is new. Cell towers, we have so many already. I don't see us changing it to unrestricted, and all of a sudden, we've got 3 dozen more cell tower sites.
To my knowledge also, there might be 1 or 2 properties in the county where this is a hang-up right now.
There's more than that.
You think so?
There's-
Well, there might, I'm aware of, just
Right,
wondering.
the farm operators are a smart group, so they don't want to offer up necessarily their land for lease that has entitlements
But-
left or prime farm. So these pieces have come to the top between buyer and seller and leases because they're just being farmed, they're restricted.
But again, my thing, this is not a bad thing, people. This is not a bad
I'm
thing.
not speaking to that, I'm just
Yeah.
saying quantity. If
This
I had the guess, if this is changed and we do 10 solar farm sites, 2 to 4 will be on restricted lands. I mean, anywhere to, a quarter to
And again,
to half.
the restricted land was the poor guy needed to borrow money to build his house.
or sold off entitlements.
Charlie, that's one example.
Well, that's pretty much the main example.
Well, no, there could be all sorts of other examples.
Like,
Oh, okay, you bring up cell towers, so I'll use them as an example, and maybe I'm wrong on this, but, if somebody, if you have a house on 40 acres and you have a cell tower, then you're on restricted property, right? You have a house on
Right.
40 acres,
no,
and you got conditional use and put up a cell tower, now your property is restricted, right?
Technically, the house has not been divided off and we don't have a deed restriction.
But isn't that's restricted property now because the cell tower used up the one entitlement?
It's not restricted in the way we define and use the deed restriction.
Didn't you get a conditional use permit for the?
If that house were divided off,
So that's not that, so if someone had a house
that's the
and a
difference.
cell tower,
But
right
you're
now they
talk-
could have
but you're talking about that cell tower again. You're not talking about a church. You're not talking about a second house.
No, but in this case though, in this case,
You're not
Sean,
talking about a
if you
gravel
had a
pit.
house
48,
and then you had a conditional use permit for a cell tower,
you could put up
you have no
solar.
more entitlements, do you?
You
No,
don't, but it's not deed restricted because the house hasn't been divided.
So in that case, you could put on,
solar panels.
solar panels in.
You could.
Okay. I guess I thought that cell tower would have used that
That's where I'm
restriction.
it's coming to a deal where for fairness is really what this is about. Because the person had to finance their house, their land got restricted,
Or
they
sell it.
can't do the same.
Or sell it. Same
Is that
scenario.
is that the only scenario where it's a house? using the entitlement?
What do you mean only, you mean where you could do that cell
Where,
tower?
where the property is restricted or not restricted is,
It's one house per.
now, yeah, if you have a 40 and you sold off 2.5 acres a lot, then the 37.5 is
You
restricted.
can't build another house there.
Let's say you have
Simple. You sold that 2.5 off to
Yep.
somebody else.
Yep,
Let's say you have 120 acres and 3 entitlements on each 40, and you transfer entitlements to the 140. The rest is deed restricted. Can't have a gravel pit, can't have a cell tower, can't have a church, can't have a solar farm at this
Right now.
time. It's only allowed to agricultural purposes. So I would agree, when you just talk about a 40 with a house, and a 40 with a house that's been divided, and just a use of a cell tower versus solar, but that's a pretty limited definition, and I think most of those divisions, they've moved on. You know, the person has sold their farmland to a farmer, the house has been sold, it's the same thing. It's still deed restricted, whether it's been sold or not. But this
and the
comes
deed
up,
restriction, the way I think that it should be upheld is, there's no more dwelling on that property. You used your one house per 40, there's no more dwelling. But to say that we can't put up solar panels or can't use it for another function other than corner soybeans, that's where I think it comes to a fairness thing, you know, but
But if we allow a solar farm on a deed restriction, are we opening ourselves up to allow a house on a deed restriction?
no, not at all.
well, not a house, but if you're going to argue fairness, somebody
You
might argue
could,
fairness.
you could, in fairness, Mark, somebody, like you said, with a cell tower come up and said, I'd like to put a cell tower up here, and you know what? I'm not gonna have a problem with that either, although right now, they would have to go through this process and have the hearings and.
Well, okay, so then I could put up a pole shed.
You can put a pole shed for agricultural purposes.
Yeah, you can
Yeah,
do,
you
you
could
can do
do-
agricultural,
You just can't have
Agricultural
a-
pole
On the
shed.
deed restriction.
Yeah, you can't have a dwelling.
farming, correct?
Yeah, 'cause you're
Storing
farming,
of
it's part of
combines, grain
You couldn't put it
bins.
up and
It's
run a
just-
business out of it.
It really is, just gets down to being fair, you know.
And I understand that, Charlie. I want people to be able to do what they want with their property, but I want to make sure that it doesn't affect
Got it.
the other property owners.
I
Or that we're not going to be opening ourselves up to a free-for-all, allowing people to do whatever they want then.
And
No,
that
I don't
has,
think that's the case.
this is why it has affected the solar farms, is because we are being fair. It affects all these other land uses. So at this time, we're doing the same to solar farms. We have to. They're all being treated the same at
But
this
if we
time.
change this, then we're not.
Well, I don't know if you want to use the word not fair, but it's an
It's actually
exception
more fair.
for the solar farms.
Sean, how hard would it be for you to take a township or a fourth of a township and kind of say, okay, this is how it would impact this 1/4 of this township. Here's the ones that would be allowed without, here's the ones that would be allowed with. Here are the scenarios by which they're restricted, why, you know what I mean, and that sort of thing. Would that be a lengthy process for your office to carry out? Is that something that wouldn't be, you know, just to kind of, so the board that goes into this things with their eyes wide open and knows what this means on the ground out there,
Right, Mr. Chair, County Board.
if that makes sense.
We probably could dig some of that up from previous land use plans, because we looked at entitlements and restricted pieces in relation to more building sites and adding areas to land use plans. So we'll come up with a database that'll say there's X amount of restricted parcels, and it's going to be a good number, and there's X amount of entitlements, and that'll be a higher number. So it's still, it'll give you an idea.
But no, isn't that proved though, Pat? I guess you know, it's just
Give
how
us a
many
number. I mean,
potential places where this would, you know.
I appreciate that.
I
I'm
know,
not
but
sure
I
what,
don't-
I'm not sure what it would or wouldn't at this point in time, Charlie. I'm not, but I feel like there's a little bit of confusion here on, you know, what's going to happen if we allow it or if we don't allow it.
If
And it might clear that up.
Okay, I'll do my best here. If we allow it, you will have a solar farm up in Cokato Township right now that would not have been allowed otherwise. And there's one more that I'm aware
Now,
of.
let me ask you this question,
Okay.
so, is the,
Now, and-
let me ask you this one though, because I want to know the answer to this.
Say There's a potential.
Because in my mind, this makes a difference.
It would be.
I think, or it may make a difference, is, so there's no entitlement is where the entitlement used, does that person still own the adjacent property that would put on solar? Or is it someone that he sold it off to?
May or may not.
Because in my mind, I'm starting to hear you more on the, well, I've heard you, but I'm starting to agree with you maybe more on one component of this than the other. And I don't know if it can be split off this way or not, and maybe no one else thinks it's right, but if I got a 40 and I cut off 5 acres.
Sold it.
Well, if I take 5 acres off and mortgage it, because you talked about that a lot.
Yep.
Because the bank doesn't want to do the whole 40, and I own the other 35.
Build a house there.
Yep. And I want to put solar on that 35, that's one thing. But what if I take and sell that 5 acres off to someone that I don't know,
Yep.
and then I put the solar panels all around their house?
Okay.
That's two different scenarios there. One, I'm putting the solar panels all around my 5
Well, there's
acres,
setbacks too, though.
and the other, I'm putting the solar panels all around somebody else's 5 acres.
But you may,
So-
okay.
So maybe an ordinance,
But
which is in the middle, allows you to do it if the entitlement was only removed for mortgage purposes. In other words, you still own the adjacent, whatever, if that makes sense. I don't know if we can do that,
The
but
deed restriction was done for
the
mortgage.
deed restriction was done for mortgage purposes, and the two adjacent properties are still owned in common.
But you have
the 5 and the
you have a
35.
legal division that can be sold. I don't know what happens at year 5 when that house is sold. I guess the panels are there.
Well, if it happens after the fact, it happens
Well-
after the fact, but I think there is a difference between someone sticking solar panels all around their property than all around somebody else's.
But that commitment is made on the cell tower. When somebody has not divided their house off yet, it's not deed restricted, and we have this unique situation where they can lease to a cell tower or a solar farm, they're...
You can't do it with a cell tower now, though.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can.
And
Well, not if it's deed restricted.
No.
But it's not deed restricted under that circumstance. The house is on the 40. It hasn't been divided
No,
off.
in that case, you can,
It
put it all
hasn't been deed
together.
restricted, and that person has made a commitment to not dividing it off. They can't. They're doing a lease for a solar farm or a cell tower.
And
So those dynamics aren't going to change. If you allow the house that's been divided off, same ownership to do this other use, we can't control whether the house is sold or not. I'm not saying that's a bad thing if they do.
After the fact.
After the fact.
No, after the fact, but at least then the owner comes in with his eyes wide open, seeing what's next to him.
Okay, here's the thing though, Pat.
Is anyone gathering what I'm saying?
following-
I'm trying to-
I'm following what you're saying, Pat, but here's the thing though. If I own the 40 and I put up solar panels, I have setbacks from my neighbors. I own a 40, you might have land bordering here, Chris has a house here, Mike has one here.
No, I understand
And Mike and
that.
I live on this side, we have setbacks. We can put up the solar panel, we still have setbacks. If that 5 acres was sold off now, let's say the first they just did it for financing, but then they moved to town and sold the 5 acres, there's still gonna be setbacks from that 35 acres to his 5 acre thing. There would still be
Yeah, there would be
setbacks,
I agree
same
with
as
the
any
setbacks. I
other,
agree
same
with
as
the
any
setbacks.
other neighbor around that 40.
Well, there's no property line technically, but on a big 40, it's probably going to be away from the,
But if
The
there
house.
was property lines,
If there
though, Shauna,
was.
it was 5 acres was divided off, there would be setbacks around that
it'd
5
be the
acres as
same,
well.
same
Those
requirements.
boxes aren't being opened.
It would be the same requirements as any other neighbors.
That's true.
There's a couple other people here. Do they have any comments?
Okay, yeah, a good point. Would anybody,
Comment?
go ahead, and anybody from the audience, if they want to come and speak on this issue, feel free to. And if you could give your name and maybe your
morning.
city of residence for the record, please.
Good morning.
And if you're with a company, that company as well.
Mr. Chair, members of the board and staff, my name is Gordy Simonton, and I am with Solarstone, and as was discussed here earlier, the site that we have in Wright County, it's our only one, is the Cokato site. I also just, and I'll be brief here, but just to let you know that I was here, I think, in the meeting in early November when I think you put the charter out to staff to send out information to the townships to get some feedback from them. Once that was initiated, I took the initiative to go out and either meet with the townships, and I believe there's 18 that I discovered,
Yep.
or talk to them, and I spoke to 17 or met with in those groups. There was only one township that I wasn't able to get a meeting with or a discussion with. Now, again, this is just my sampling, but of the 17 that I talked to or met with, there was only one dissension on that. They were either neutral on the issue or they were approving of it. The other thing that I would tell you too is, and just listen to your discussions here, and I'll provide this as some additional data points, we don't really view this as a runaway train, and there's some factors that play into this that I think that I'd just like to submit to you, and that is that number one, we have to be in Excel's footprint. And in Wright County, if you take a look at 30,000 feet, you will see that that primarily runs out Highway 12 and up 94. So, and if you look at it from a customer standpoint, Excel with density there probably has the lion's share of customers. The rest of, from a geographic standpoint, they only probably have about 10% from a geographic standpoint. The rest of it's being serviced by your co-ops. In order for us to have a solar garden in Wright County, we need to be in Excel's footprint. We also have to be at least a quarter of a mile from a substation, or from the facility, I'm sorry. From our facility to the transmission line, we have to be a quarter of a mile. We also have to have a willing property owner that's willing to lease that to us. To answer the question about the explosion, substations, we then go into substations. There's limited capacity that Excel substations can handle. Once they've reached that capacity and they can't accept any more energy, the only way that that's going to increase is those developers are going to have to come in and pay for the upgrades to those substations in order to be able to accept it. So that's a very expensive proposition. So there's some gating factors with Excel's systems today that wouldn't allow them to be able to do that.
In today. But that doesn't mean they couldn't change their substations to increase the
They could, but that would be at the expense of the developers to come in and pay that.
Or Excel could do it themselves.
Or the government could subsidize it also, but as they're doing now, you know, to get these projects moving in the first place, but.
And Gordy, to clarify what you said before, there was one township in opposition. The other 16 or 17 that you talked to were either neutral or in favor.
Again, that's my sampling that I did and the initiative that I took to do that.
That is, I mean, like I said, I've talked with the people in my district, and I think I have 7 of those townships, and they were in favor or just,
And I have,
whatever happens, you know, they're okay with it.
I'm sure you don't want to, but I have my notes in the meetings and the discussions that I had with the individuals in those townships if I couldn't get with them. As I started to realize there's a lot of duplication of meetings, and I wanted to get that accomplished before the December 10th planning and zoning meeting, which I believe it was, when I was here anyway, that was unanimously approved as well.
Thank you.
Yep.
The dissension, was that Buffalo Township?
Buffalo Township, yep.
And which township did you not meet with?
Monticello. Thank you.
Anybody else like to speak? John, or?
Yeah, just one more comment. I guess your definition of train wreck or explosion is relative. We do 1 or 2 PUDs a year now. We do a couple gravel pits, and when we were doing 3 or 4, that was the biggest, most contentious issue there was. Once in a while, we see a church. Commissioner Burrell knows what we dealt with on the new big church in Franklin Township. Before this year, this issue wasn't in front of us, and we did 0. This will be, again, I'm not saying it's good or bad, this will be our biggest issue this year for land use planning and CUPs and dealing with townships and neighbors, and probably next year. Gordy's right about the Excel limits and the substation. So that even focuses the uses more in those areas. I wish it was almost a random, like housing almost.
Right.
It was spread out through the township. So Buffalo had Aurora and 1 or 2 more, not almost every farm operator in their township being contacted by multiple firms.
Well, just to clarify, because I don't think you said the number, David, hasn't there been like 300 or 400 different inquiries on this here?
If I had just wrote down all the PID numbers I've got for the past year and a half, I'm over 100. Now, 3 of them are on the same substation and you can only do 1.
But I know that number wasn't it, Charlie, when we went to the Rockford thing, wasn't like 300 to 400 the number of applications or whatever, something like that? I mean, it was that kind of a number, but.
And the
So, I mean, it is an explosion when you look at, 2 years ago, this not even really being on our radar, and now 300 to 400. And the economics of substations, I won't, as Commissioner Dryden points out, they can be changed, and like I say, when the federal government or the state government wants to do something bad enough, money becomes no object. So, I mean, it is reasonable to believe that somebody could come in and subsidize the capacity increases at these, that not necessarily that it makes sense financially and that the applicant is going to do that, but that some third party, the same third party that's subsidizing all this right now, that without it, it wouldn't be happening and we wouldn't be talking about it, and it'd probably be a few years away from making economic sense yet. They could step in and subsidize those substations as well, but I interrupted you, so why don't go ahead and finish, Sean, and then we'll go to Charlie?
I think I made my point.
Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I live about a mile from Waverly. We have 2 solar gardens already that have been approved, one in the city of Waverly, one just across the road in Woodland Township. There's a field across the road from me that has, they're looking into it. I don't think there's going to be enough of a substation in Waverly anymore to do that, but if there were, like I said, I would be looking right at those panels across the road, and my wife and I have talked it over, and that's in the city of Waverly. We wouldn't have much to say about it anyway, but we've decided that we would rather look across the road at solar panels than a housing development across the road. So that's just us personally, but I think there's a lot of benefits for this because I'm looking at, if they put solar panels in, that 50 acres of prime ag land, I farm that right now, would stay prime farm ag land. It would not go into houses for the next 20 or 25 years. I would think that's a plus. I think as far as environmentally, they're going to have vegetative cover underneath. That will be a nice place for the water to come down and soak into the ground rather than houses with streets and roofs and driveways where the water, now it makes more problems down the road environmentally. It takes some corn and soybean production out of the stream, which would drive up prices ever so slightly, but that's going to help farmers that are still in the business. The other thing is the county, that will be a commercial tax, so whatever the tax on that, it would double. The other thing is there's a $200 a year solar tax that comes to the county. So that's 200 times 50, 10,000, am I right? 10,000.
I'm sorry,
$200 an acre times 50 would be $10,000, right? Here's an extra 10,000 for that 50 acres. The township gets, Gordy, you can tell me, was it 66 for the township's share of that solar tax?
$66?
An acre, yeah, per year. I can't remember the exact number, but it's 56, okay, something in that area. And that's in addition to their tax base going up too. But that's talking just about solar, and I gotta keep bringing it back. What we're talking about here is just kind of a fairness thing to say, let them put it up on the land. The restriction really should be, if I had to go back and look at this, Pat, and maybe you would do the same thing, when we're restricting it, it was 1 house per 40. We're restricting the house uses. We're not going to allow another dwelling up on that property. Right now, we restrict a lot of other things. And for right now, I would like to just have the solar removed from that. And if down the road, if somebody came in here with a cell tower, I know my opinion would be to not restrict it to a cell tower either. I just don't see why, because somebody had to finance the house, that they should be at a disadvantage over their neighbor. And the setbacks, though, Pat, that's a good point that you made. Those setbacks would be the same thing as any other neighbor around that 40. They're not going to be able to put the panels up. And most of the time, what I'm seeing on the panels that are going up in Woodland Township, on my neighbor's property, they're staying well back of the house. I mean, way, way back, because there's some trees around his property, and they're just staying away from them. They're not going to generate power, so
Well,
there's...
that's a good point, though, too. Will they go in and cut a bunch of
No,
trees down there?
no, they're not doing that. And that's another thing that we're talking about, that, I'm gonna come back to that with, this is not necessarily, again, talking to this change, but in solar in general, we are, at the planning and zoning, we are, Sean, you can attest to this, we're asking lots of questions, we're setting some parameters up, the townships have worked with us, Woodland Township said that they want there's a certain variety of tree, it's a shorter tree, so they would still be able to put their panels within the setbacks, but they wanted that line of trees along the roads. The solar company said, we'll do that gladly, no problem. So they're working with us, and planning and zoning is asking those questions. We're vetting this on every system that comes before us so far, we have it anyway.
That's true, Mr. Chair. We ask a lot of questions, and sometimes on paper it looks great, and you go back a year later and you still need to fine
And to Commissioner Hewsom's point, we're going to learn as we go here too, but everyone's invited to come in, and I mean, gosh, we get a variety of opinions, and some of them you kind of laugh at, and other ones, wow, that's a good point. So, and now, did the right person come in and ask the right question? We can't guarantee that, but we're doing our best on that. I mean,
So
that's in solar in general. Again, this is a little different thing. This, I said, is getting to a fairness issue.
So I guess I'll sum up, Mr. Chair, County Board, Commissioner Burrell, that's what I would circle. We are going to learn. If these were golf courses, I'd probably tell you we're going to have one more golf course if we allow it on restricted property. I just wish there was a way to know what we're going to learn and be able to speak to
But
this
Sean,
issue.
if they're bad...
So I made the mistake of asking Greg, can you do interim zoning proposals, that sunset? It's up to you guys what you want to do, what you want to have a study, but
Yeah.
this first year is coming at us, maybe we do something, sunset it, and then reevaluate. I don't know.
The thing, though, is, you're talking, again, in solar in general, and if we're going to be making a mistake allowing solar farms to come in, they're already, the mistakes are already there, This is something to allow it on a piece of land that had a parcel set off for financing in the most times. And Commissioner Swatsky's right, there's probably some other issue somewhere else where it might have gotten restricted. I can't think of it, but there might have been. But I just think it's a fairness issue. If the neighbor can put his into solar, then this person could do theirs, and they're still going to meet all the setbacks, so. And be vetted, and be vetted by planning and zoning, and be vetted by this board again, because we are going to approve, well, wait, no, on a conditional use we want. On a conditional use we want.
Right.
But it would still be vetted by the planning and zoning board for sure.
The planning commission.
And the townships, but they're out.
Mr. Chair, I've had a lot of information thrown at me today. I want to think on this a little bit more. I'd like to table this until next week.
Okay. So is that a motion to
That's
table?
a motion to table till next week.
Okay. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion to tables are non-debatable. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Yeah.
I wouldn't mind...
Gives me one more week to beat up on you
Yeah,
guys.
I don't know, I guess I wouldn't mind some sort of a presentation, but I guess Sean can think about whether that's something he can do and
Just
or not, but
Is it going to be a presentation on solar, or be a presentation on...
presentation on like a map of a...
Restricted.
Of an area, and just to give us an idea, here is a sampling of a half a township or something like that.
And then within a half a mile of the substation as well.
But again,
Well, he can say things.
we're opening up to
You know.
just more than just solar in this situation. When we open up the restriction parcels, we're opening it up to other things other than solar.
Right now, it's just solar.
But you're right, Charlie, there's going to be lawsuits regarding
Other things.
other opportunities.
But
Mr. Chair, Sean and Commissioner Burrell, you're on the Planning Commission. I want to just compliment you because you guys have done a tremendous amount of work in the last year, going on 2 years now, that since this first got dropped in our laps with the state project, the Aurora project, you've gone through a lot, and I appreciate that.
And just for a context on that Aurora project, the city of Annandale is still
Right.
dealing with the site located outside of them. The
Right,
one
That's
down
nothing to
south,
do with us.
yeah, and then Buffalo, so I think for some people that was not the best start.
Right, it was not.
this issue.
Yeah, and these things, and Charlie, I remember when we did cell towers, and I know we did like a 1-year moratorium at least on, I think we did like a year moratorium on them, and then we studied and did something, because they kind of, there was kind of, and not nearly the explosion of this, but I think there was kind of the thought that, we could be looking at 30 or 40 of these in the next couple of years, as opposed to 300 or 400. Well, yeah, and that's a little different dynamic too. The board thought, we don't want two standing side by side when one tower can hold the antennas from each. So, we try to set rules in place and again, so that's a different component here. You don't share something with solar. They do their own. So there was a different dynamic, but it took a while to figure our way through it. And I think we've got through this one pretty quickly, with the exception of now this one issue, obviously. But how many active applicants do you have right now?
Active,
How many people have applied to get a permit to do a solar?
Mr. Chair, 3,
System
but
up
that's a
front.
small number compared to what I've got ready to go out.
You've got 3 that have actually applied, and there's dozens and dozens more that are probably going to be coming in any week now.
I would say we have, one firm might have 3 sites. So,
None of those are restricted.
No, because they couldn't apply yet.
well, some are
right now, they
waiting.
couldn't apply.
Some are waiting
Yeah.
for.
But you have 3 that have applied that are not restricted because they're able to apply.
That is correct.
Yeah. Okay. And those 3, are any of them like multiple sites? In other words, this is an application, but it's for like 2 or 3 sites? It's 3 applications for 1 site each?
Correct.
How many active applications are going on in St. Paul for facilities that are bigger than having to come to us in Wright County right now? Are there any? We know the one in Buffalo got approved apparently.
Some in the industry might know better. I know Excel is doing like 3 or 4 large-scale projects pretty far from the metro. That Aurora project was unique in that it was 20 sites throughout the metro area as one project. I think it's mainly the solar gardens that the state and Excel is dealing with right now.
Okay,
That leaves it with the counties.
okay. Very well, thank you.
See you next week.
Yeah, thanks, and for those that attended, I appreciate your attendance and your input. Items for consideration, appointments to the Great River Regional Library Board of Trustees. Chris, do you want to take this, or Sue, do you want to lead off with this, or?
What I can tell you is that you would be reaffirming the appointments of Dan Bravendorf. Shovelin, thank you.
It should be Jim Shovelin.
Yeah, that should be Jim
It should be Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's,
And I don't, I'm not sure why we really need to reaffirm them. Maybe by not taking action, we reaffirm them, because they were both appointed through December 31st of 2016, it indicates here, so.
This is through the joint powers agreement with the library board that we need to do that?
Yeah, I mean, we appointed them to like a 3-year term, so.
So then your only opening would be to replace Mike Messina's position, and you had received 1 application, and that was from Wayne Bauernschmidt.
I'll make a motion to approve Wayne Bauer Schmidt.
Second.
I will
Okay.
second.
We actually got,
We had 2 other interested parties,
Oh, I'm sorry.
so, that we had gotten, and with the basically interview process and the letters of interest that we got, Wayne Bauernschmidt, with his experience with planning and budgeting and
He kind of stood out.
a number of other reasons, he appeared to be the best candidate.
Well, and then one of those two you're talking about never, they just kind of inquired, but never really
Inquired.
seemed to
We were waiting for a response
Really
to get a letter.
apply, for lack of a better word. But, so we have a motion by Commissioner Gline and a second by Commissioner Burrell down on here.
And I apologize, I didn't know there was any other ones. I thought Wayne Bowership was the only one.
Well, yeah, and
With the motion, or?
Chris, it was Chris and mine's district, and we had talked, a little bit about, but like I say, this person's in Chris's district, and, talked to both Chris and I at the township officers meeting the other night, and has, certainly some unique skill sets and personal, interest in the library, so. And I think everybody here probably knows Wayne and some of the organizations he's involved with, but, I think along with this, then you can let them know that, the board does reaffirm the other two, that acknowledges that they're gonna continue on, so. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Pose same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Cancel board meetings. I know March we want to take care of for sure. I don't know if we want to go all the way to the end of the year unless somebody's really trying to do some future planning, but we can, let's at least take care of March and see if anybody wants to do any future ones right now or wait and see what the future holds for them, maybe, I don't know.
Mr. Chair, I would
You have the one in,
or move that we cancel the March 15th board meeting.
okay, Commissioner Hewsome makes a motion to cancel the meeting of March 15th due to 5 Tuesdays.
I'll second that.
Second by Commissioner Burrell. Any discussion on that date?
Where's Commissioner Hewsome going?
Don't have to
I'll be in Washington DC with
She's getting a head start on St. Patrick's Day.
with the Workforce Center, Central Minnesota Jobs and Training.
Okay. I was joking, that you knew.
You know, if my daughter would not have gotten injured, that might have been the date I wanted too, because they got their conference tournament down in Reno, Nevada. But,
Oh, wow. Well, maybe you can still go.
well, she won't be there due to her injuries, so I probably won't, but anyhow, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign, motion carries unanimous. Now, looking out into the more future months, is there, anybody have, do we want to take May down right now? Is there an obvious date there, or,
Mr. Chair, if you're looking at the last Tuesday in May,
right after Memorial Day?
that would be the
there?
day after Memorial Day.
Yeah, that might be a
be
good one.
a good,
Sue, do you got some input here?
Yes, Coordinator Kelly wanted you to know that there are also, I believe it's the AMC conference, or there is a conference at the first part of May, so he suggested either the first or second.
But isn't that
Different
conference
conferences.
on like a Wednesday, Thursday, or something like that,
usually
or?
it's, I thought usually it's on a Thursday, or,
I just know that before he left, he suggested that if you wanted, that was consideration.
Well, I think we need to get clarification on that.
Yeah.
why don't we wait on that one then?
So we got two possibilities, the one with the week of maybe that AMC conference, and then the one the day after. I kind of like Chris's suggestion, because I'm pretty sure that conference is not on a Tuesday, so I don't think we have a problem
I
there.
can double check.
You want to just wait till next week?
Yeah.
Yeah, why don't we,
Next week,
or
after,
for
yeah.
that matter, we could even,
We got time.
yeah, as far as August and November, did anybody have anything right now that they really thought out there that they wanted to do? Because I don't mind waiting
Mr.
2
Chair,
or 3 months before them, and then you can kind of see if something else, because there may be something in August that we don't even know about yet.
Yeah, August,
You got something, Mike, in August or November going on?
November is the one that comes up because AMC is early this year. And if we were to go with the 5, if we were to take off the 29th, the last one, that'd be bad because we have the AMC the next Tuesday.
That'd be
just-
two in a
Took
row.
off the 22nd. Instead, that's before Thanksgiving.
The week of Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
That would be better. Because then we wouldn't be missing 2 weeks in a row.
So something to consider. But-
Yeah, I think you're right. The last one is probably off the table.
right.
And then the other ones are,
I,
Tuesday the 1st is the day after Halloween for those that really do Halloween up,
no, that's all right.
Sue?
Just to remind you that you also have Election Day. November
Tuesday.
8th will be Election Day.
Yeah, and I don't think that really matters.
I think we usually meet, we've always met in the.
Yeah.
for
That doesn't
the two
impact you.
elections.
If you're the candidate, it's a good way to keep yourself busy and keep your mind off it anyhow,
Things,
so
yep.
probably being here is as
True.
good a place as any.
Concession speech.
That'll be a little early for that 9 a.m. Well, you know, the way the polls are nowadays, maybe they'll already be indicating who the winners are gonna be by Monday night or something.
I did have that last time, Pat, on the patch. I had lost the election at 1:30 in the morning already.
Oh, wow, really?
Okay. The general or the?
No, the general, because
Okay.
Hanover and Rockford Township were in. And based on those two, the projection was I was losing.
I don't remember seeing that on Fox News, but maybe I overlooked it.
It was,
No, I'm kidding. Pat, quit that. We're not used to you joking. Okay, here, so we got rid of the one in March, anyhow. DNR buffer mapping webinar, and with this one here, I brought this up the other night, and I suppose people can probably see this from home too, but it just seems like sometimes when you do some of this stuff from home, things freeze up and it don't work as well, and here we got a more sophisticated system, and that's why at the township officers meeting, I maybe suggested that we do a room here. I don't know if people think that's a good idea, or if they'd rather, if they wanted to watch this, just kind of,
It certainly seemed to be something the township officers were interested in.
I think so.
like I say, I suspect people could probably do it from their home computer. Get on here maybe, and you know, but, so we're thinking of maybe kind of like having a conference room set aside and just having the board and anybody else, we invited the township officers, maybe 3 or 4 of them would want to come and sit in and,
Deb actually has coordinated that, so we have reserved room C-118.
okay.
And then she was just going to send out announcements, letting people know that we do have that room reserved if they wish to come in and do that.
Okay.
Great.
So, could you make a note to send an email to Karen McDougal that at the county C-118 is where this webinar will be held, and that she's, can invite township officers to come and attend that at C-118 if they'd like to?
Okay.
And then I guess we'll need a motion here since there'll
I will make that motion.
number of us there potentially to kind of authorize attendance here. Okay, we got a motion by Commissioner Houston, second by
What was the date of that?
Commissioner Potter. It's January 20th, 9:30 to 10:30 a.m. A Skype meeting, so I'm thinking then that there's going to be literally like a camera on our group too, in case someone wanted to stand up and ask a question. Is that how that's going to work?
If it's Skype.
When it says a Skype meeting?
That would indicate that would be possible.
That we would be able to have communication back with them in case someone in our group had a question potentially? It seems like such a short meeting for there to be a question answer, but it's only got it listed as an hour, but, so maybe if you can, and I don't know if we need that ability or if we can just listen, but if someone did have a question, it'd be nice if they could ask it.
Former AMC.
Yeah, yep, she was many years Environment and Natural Resources Policy Chair. So we got the 20th at 9:30 to 10:30. You got this here? 9:30 to 10:30. Did we vote on this yet?
No.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimously. Buffer webinar. Okay, we're assuming people can maybe pick this up from their home computer, but for those that don't want to risk that freezing up or something, we're going to have it set up here with professionals in the building. And I don't know if anybody from like the city of St. Michael, because they're such a big city, would be interested, you know. I'm not sure how it impacts them, or like Otsego because of their size, it might be,
That wouldn't be such a bad thing to
if you guys want to invite them or something. They're kind of a little different than the more compact cities. Authorize attendance, Wright County Economic Development Partnership. Mike, did you put this on?
Yes, I did. I know Dave Unmock, it's been a while. He's the new executive director of LMC, which is League of Minnesota Cities. It's through our Wright County Economic Development Partnership, and to listen to Dave, you're gonna walk away more informed than you were before. He's a very dynamic speaker and very knowledgeable on a lot of fronts. I think anybody who goes to this will come away saying it was time well spent. And just want to make it so it was open for anybody else on the board if they wanted to go.
And because we're members, the annual meeting is free. So if you should sign up, you should RSVP, but there will be no cost to the county for your registering. And you can do that online, I did it online. Or you can call a number, but, so a motion
I'll make
to
that
authorize
motion.
attendance, motion by
I'll second
Potter,
that.
second by Houston, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous, and Mike, you got the next one, that urban boundary area?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. We have a memo of understanding with the Met Council when that federal urbanized boundary thing came around last year, and Commissioner Delyden attended some of those meetings and that. And January 21st at 4 o'clock in Albertville is the first annual meeting. That'll be a continuing thing, and I just want to get authorization for attendance to that. I think we need to keep ourselves informed of this, what's going on there. It's a good question answer, good to get to know who the other people are. I have extended out to Jeff O'Neill already from Monticello. I'm going to work on Mr. Auger and Mr. Kern from Delano, because the next time around, the next census comes around, more than likely those cities will be in this urbanized boundary because it's a federal boundary, not a state, and they don't recognize the fact that we're not in the Met Council. And I think it's good for us to keep up on this, just so we don't get blindsided somewhere in the future.
What was the location of that meeting again?
Albertville, the city of Albertville, the
City Hall?
City
City
Hall,
Hall.
at 4 o'clock on January 21st.
So you're putting this out there for attendance then, is what you're making a motion on there?
Yeah.
Yeah, because if, you mentioned Monticello may get in, so I may attend this meeting as well then potentially.
Yeah, because they're not in right now.
Sure.
But based on demographics, more than likely, the next time around, it'll encompass Monticello, Buffalo, and Delano. Right
And I
now, it
think,
just
yeah.
encompasses Otsego, St. Michael, Albertville, and Hanover.
And you were kind of on the committee at one
Yeah,
point too.
I
so-
still am,
So I
yeah.
assume you'll probably be at the meeting as well?
Should be.
Yeah. So motion by Commissioner Potter, is there a second?
I'll second.
A second by Commissioner Houston, any further discussion? And I'm not even sure Delano probably isn't getting too far away from being included
The
in
next
this
census,
too.
they'll probably be in it.
So everybody potentially has has some marbles in this game, so maybe we'll probably, see 3 or more of us there then. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. We've got leadership 3 minutes ago, so
Yep.
does anybody have any urgent advisory committee updates that they need to make? If not, maybe we'll just bypass those.
Mr. Chair, just a quick one. I put this in, I had enough copies for just about everybody. This was the owners committee last meeting. The recommendations, change orders were all less than the amount, and quite a few of them were pretty much critical, had to get done, and they went forward. Any questions, objection, but we can bring that for full discussion next week.
Yeah, I assume those minutes at some point are going to come to we bring these here, right, those minutes? Okay. Anybody else have anything we need to bring up at this time? If not, there being no further business, we are adjourned at 10:33 a.m.
Getting warm in here.